This is how I handled the end of the quilt to adjust the last rows to make sure that I don't have a large adjustment to make on the last row when I'm quilting. I have 4 rows left to quilt. I have relocated my project origin. I've checked the left edge of the quilt. I've checked the right edge of the quilt to make sure the pattern is aligned with the edge where I want the quilting to stop. If I move the machine so that the crosshair indicates the very top edge of the next row to be quilted, okay, I have the crosshair aligned with the top edge of the next row to be quilted. I want to know how much pattern is left to quilt. Start at the left just above the next row to be quilted. Hold down the left mouse button. Drag to the right and down and draw the marquee box around all of the rows that's left to be quilted. Now I let go of the mouse button. You notice that it has selected the last 4 rows. Here in the pattern height area, it says I have 24.52 inches of pattern left to be quilted. Next, I would measure with a tape measure from where the needle is, from this point, which is at the top edge of the next row to be quilted, all the way to the end of the quilt. Now let's suppose that my measurement is 25 inches of quilt, but I only have 24.52 inches of pattern left. Zoom in, take the bottom wedge. Now remember, I have this set right now for edge anchor, so the top edge will stay anchored where it is, and when I drag the bottom, it will increase the amount of pattern that I have to quilt. So there's 24.93. Drag it down a little further, 25.07. Now I would probably leave this like this and make the small adjustment on these last 2 rows. If, on the other hand, I only had 24 inches of quilt left and my pattern was 25.5 inches, I would take this bottom wedge and I would move it up. And I would adjust it as close to 24 inches as I can get it. I'd probably leave it just like this, 24.01. Then when I quilt these 2 rows, roll, get ready to quilt the last 2 rows, I would make the final adjustment by placing the needle, placing the hopping foot at the bottom edge of the quilt, and again I would now, after sewing these 2 rows, I would relocate my project origin, then I would look at this last 2 rows. It says I have 11.88, and maybe I need exactly 12 inches. So again, I make my adjustments, and I would have the machine sitting at this very bottom edge of the quilt top. Now all I have to do is grab this bottom wedge, pull it down to that line, there it shows 11.99. If you want to get this even closer, zoom way in, grab this wedge, pull it down slightly, until it touches the crosshair line. I have my pattern adjusted along the bottom edge of the quilt, and I'm ready to quilt the last 2 rows.